Dale Kirby, and it relates to the 1.6-kilometer busing rule that currently is in existence for our schools. And, Pete, there was the government did a study on this, I'm going to say 2 years ago. It might have been a year and a half or somewhere between, say, the last year and a half and 2.5 years. Right. And it was done. They paid $75,000 for that study. And part of that study is they did a survey of parents throughout the province, asking their perspective on this 1.6-kilometer rule. And over 90% of the parents who I guess were surveyed said that it needed to be scrapped. And it needed to be scrapped for younger children, for elementary grade children.
Yeah, well, that's that. They don't need a survey to find that out. That's no doubt going to be the position of parents. But did they find out what it would cost to scrap it?
Well, the bottom line is when we look at cost, and cost definitely has to be a factor. There's no doubt about that. But, when we talk about the cost, I've gotten I got a call from one particular individual who wasn't from my district, but was someone who I'd known, and he had family in another part of the province, and he had told me a story, basically, of a school in another part of the province where there was 4 75-passenger buses running, passing each other and everything, and there was only 100 kids in the school, and they were going around half empty. So, and I guess the bottom line is that I think that all of the school busing needs to be examined, whether it be contracted busing or whether it be busing that in this particular story belonged to the actual school and was with the school for years, to determine if there perhaps is inefficiencies that currently exist, and the savings that could be found in one area perhaps could be applied to other areas which need the busing.
Well, listen, this study, it's been made public, has it?
Yes.
Okay, and so
you should be able to see it on the, I would assume that they would have it on the Department of Education's
But what were the conclusions?
Website, Pete.
What were the conclusions? What did it say?
Well, the bottom line is that in terms of this particular busing issue, the consultants, and I guess it was a number of factors, but they said that there were some provinces which the kilometers were less, and there were some where they were more, and we kind of fell in the middle. And the consultant at the time, to my recollection, didn't come out and say that we need to do it. They just simply said that this is something that obviously the people wanted, but it wasn't something that was recommended at that time to implement.
Well, people want a lot of things, obviously, when it comes to their kids especially, but really, in my mind, we want to do as much as possible and keep kids safe and do common sense things. If a situation is such that it doesn't make any sense not to do it, then we do it. Of course, you set a precedent then, and other people point to it and say, well, you did it for them, you got to do it for us. It comes down to cost and common sense, and that's two things that don't always come together sometimes, but I know they're looking at this. I think Darren King said recently that they're taking another look at it. Do we have any idea of when they're going to make a decision?
I have no idea, Pete, to be honest with you, when that would happen. I did hear something about that myself a while ago. I'm certainly hopeful that they're going to look at it. And obviously, look, I'm not going to be foolhardy enough to call in and suggest that we just simply do everything everybody wants without costing it out and so on. Because, we have to be cognizant of the dollars that are there. It has to be something that we can afford, and it has to be obviously prioritized. But when you look at priorities, I think that, that this is one that certainly has to rank high when we talk about the safety of our children, our young children going to school. And this is even, besides the distance, and it's not even so much the distance is obviously part of it, and having to walk in bad weather and everything else, and of course the ability of parents to get the kids to school. But then there's the safety factor, like in my district, which is no different, I guess, than any other busy urban area. I have children that would have to cross over 4-lane roads with high traffic volumes and issues with speed and everything else. And then that's even made worse in the wintertime when you don't even have sidewalks that are available all the time.
Yeah, safe to say that not all stretches of equal length are the same. It really depends on where they are and what the nature of it is. You can have an awful lot of roads to cross and, tricky bits during different times of year. Each one needs to be looked at individually, and you just can't put a blanket kind of distance on it and say anything under this, even if it was a kilometer. A kilometer in Mount Pearl is not the same as a kilometer around Gander Bay somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of factors involved. So I guess, Pete, I'm just really, which is my job to do, I'm just putting it out there and communicating on behalf of citizens who have called me, citizens who have emailed me, and certainly one of the issues which I brought up at the time when they were doing the school reorganization back in the spring, and one of the concerns, which has proven out to be a concern, as I knew it would, is the fact that you had like families, for example, who with young children who might have moved into, say, Munden Drive, which is basically across not Munden Drive. Jackman Drive area, which was basically across the street from Newtown Elementary.
Yeah.
You had families who moved into Ashford Drive right across the street or right alongside of St. Peter's Elementary. Mm-hmm. And at the time they moved in there, and their kids could basically just walk up the street and they would be into the school. Mm-hmm. And they had that from K to 6. Now with a K to 3, 4 to 6 split, now what you've had happen is that you have kids who in the past were right next to the school. Now they got to go. Now they're not next to the school. The only way to get there is to cross these busy roads, and unfortunately they might be 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.5 kilometers away, which is not outside the 1.6, and therefore they don't get busing either.
Yeah.
So
you know what I think?
It becomes a problem.
I think it's the Department of Education in cahoots getting kickback from the real estate agents. What do you think? Forcing everybody to move again, buy new houses. I'm saying that facetiously before somebody calls in or sends in an email thinking I meant it seriously.
I hear you. I hear you. And but Pete, as I said, the bottom line is that this is a concern for people in my district. I know it's a concern for others because I've gotten calls and emails from people in other districts as well. It is a safety concern, and I'm not foolish enough to think that with a wave of a magic wand, all of a sudden, everything can be fixed immediately. I know that you have to look at costs and all those other factors, but I do believe that, perhaps if there was a thorough look taken at the busing overall, I think maybe you could find efficiencies in certain areas. And those efficiencies could be applied towards other areas where we don't have enough busing.
Right.
I can't say for sure until you actually were in there and you looked at every scenario and you looked at all the buses and who and what's involved. Obviously, I don't have access to all that. That's the Minister of Education's job, and I'm certainly calling on him and asking him to take a serious look at that to see if there is a reasonable way that we can ensure that we're providing adequate busing for all of our children for their safety.
You know, it would be really interesting if you ended up Minister of Education when the next general election is passed, and then we can be talking to you about taking another serious look at it.
Well, Pete, here's the bottom line, Pete, and nobody knows what the future will hold for me or anybody else. I mean, obviously, I'm hopeful and I'm committed to the task, but at the end of the day, one thing I would commit to do, whether I was there in education or any other department or even make it, is the fact that it's important that we get out there, we talk about it, that we let the public know what's going on. Like if the minister, for example, and the department, has done all the research and whatever, and they've costed it out and it can't be done, then come out and tell us it can't be done. Tell us why it can't be done. Tell us what the cost is going to be and explain to the people why it can't be done. And then let the people decide whether or not they agree with that decision. Right. But simply just being silent and hoping the issue is going to go away is not going to solve anything, and it's not going to make the issue go away.
Tried and true tactic, though. Happens all the time. Always did, always will. But listen, I got to run. Thanks for the call. We'll talk again soon.
Not a problem, Pete. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, Paul. Bye-bye.
Have a good afternoon.